Well, welcome everyone to the very first Map With Me Hangout for the Write-Out project that we're all part of. And we really appreciate the fact that if you're watching live, that's great. If you're watching recorded, that's great too. We want to talk about our project that we just started over the weekend and some of the connections and partnerships that we'll be kind of trying to collaborate on as we kind of move through this week into next week and beyond. And so this is our first meetup, which is really cool. We have some guests. Some people are going to be popping in as they connect with us here. And so it's possible that as people come in, we might pause a little bit and kind of welcome them into the chat itself. Write-Out itself is a 2-week professional development that's happening that comes as a partnership between the National Writing Project and the National Park Service. And the whole idea of this open learning adventure that we're on is to find ways to connect educators and teachers with park rangers across the whole country, using some place-based learning and place-based writing as a way to kind of think about the public spaces that we're in and kind of what they mean, and also to think about ways that we might engage our students in writing and other kind of activities that relate to the idea of using park spaces as a place for writing. This is the first of 2 weeks for this project that we're doing, and we are going to be having a Twitter chat later on the week. We'll talk about at the end of the week, and we have different kind of newsletters and options for different projects and activities that you might do. First, I thought I'd turn it over to Chris Constantine, who could talk a little deeper about where this partnership between the Writing Project and the Park Service kind of came from and how we got to where we are right now. So let me turn over to you, Chris.
Awesome. Thanks, Kevin. Chris Constantine. I'm the Education Program Manager with the National Park Service, the Northeast region. So I support the parks from Virginia to Maine, and I've been doing this work with many of the folks at Writing Project sites, and Christina Cantrell, who's on the call as well, on the Hangout as well today. We've been working together since 2014. It's been kind of a quick 4 years, but we've done some pretty cool stuff in the last 4 years. Christina and I have been really working to foster local site partnerships and help you all that are in parks writing project sites find each other and connect. So far, and then also hosting kind of learning and professional development opportunities such as this one to help us think about how we can connect nationally and where we can learn from each other. It's been really cool to see what local sites do as individual sites. And then it's also really cool to create opportunities for us to all come together and share that together so that we can kind of amplify our work and find deeper and more broad connections. So we're really excited about this week, this 2 weeks here together that we're going to work on this professional development. But just to give you a little information about the sites that are working together, that are local writing project sites and National Park Service sites. We know that there are actively, currently 10 active partnerships across the country. One of the things we're hoping to see is if maybe other writing project sites and national park sites have found each other without us and are already connecting. And so tonight on the call, we have several folks that have been part of this work in the past recent years. And so we're looking forward to sharing a little bit about what inspires us to do the work, and then invite you to build maps with us and see where we all connect. So I think that should be good, Kevin. So I'll turn it back to you. Great, thank you.
Yeah, it's perfect. Nice overview. And so we thought we would do introductions. Chris did a little bit of herself, but we could go back to her if you'd like to. Just to kind of let people know kind of who we are and where we're from, and how we got into this Map With Me session. And some of us are facilitators, some are invited guests. So my name is Kevin Hodgson, and I am the Outreach Co-Director at the Western Massachusetts Writing Project. And I'm also a 6th grade teacher out in Western Massachusetts. And our site has been one of the sites that have been in partnership with a National Historic Site in our area, the Springfield Armory, that we've done quite a bit of work with that I can talk about a little more later on. But let me kind of pass it down the line. How about Kristen? You want to go next and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Kristen Lassard. I'm a park ranger at Weir Farm National Historic Site. It's a national park dedicated to American painting in Connecticut. I have been partnering with the Connecticut Fairfield National Writing Project for a couple of years to offer some teacher workshops at Weir Farm through this partnership, and got involved with this group to help put together some great activities and ideas to make more connections for sites here across the country. And I made a map. So this week's theme is mapping possibilities. So I mapped on the National Park Service map that shows all of the national park sites in the country, where some of the existing sites are. So all the pink Post-its are arrows towards a site that has existed before 2018, and the 4 yellow ones are the new ones for 2018 and 19 that we're establishing right now as part of the partnership. So I will put a picture of this up somewhere later for you to find so you can see all the great places. But there's Weir Farm right there, and it's near Springfield Armory that Kevin just talked about. So we've got a lot of sites on the East Coast and West Coast, and some of the newer ones are getting to be like more in the middle and some other areas in the country. So I'm really interested in seeing through this 2 weeks where other connections can be made. So really excited to be here.
Great, thanks, Kristen. How about Ivy? You want to introduce yourself, Ivy?
Sure. I'm Ivy Rutledge. I teach college English here in Greensboro, North Carolina. I teach at Guilford Technical Community College. I've taught high school in the past, and that's when I participated with the National Writing Project. That was back in '98 in Richmond, Virginia. So this is really me just kind of circling back to that era, I guess, of my career and doing some professional development. Here in Greensboro, I publish a community nature journal. So I've got some folks doing some writing around Greensboro, and we'll just see what comes out of that. But that's what brought me into this, because it just looked like something that dovetailed really nicely into the work that I do.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thanks for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, how about Bethany? You want to introduce yourself, Bethany?
Sure. I'm Bethany Silva. If I were to geolocate myself right now, I am a professor at the University of New Hampshire, where I get to run a community literacy center. And we actually just had a mapping party yesterday where a bunch of people made a bunch of different kinds of maps. But I actually first got involved with this project in Philadelphia as a Philadelphia teacher consultant. And I got to help run one of the partnerships in collaboration with other Philadelphia Writing Project TCs and other rangers. So we were at Independence National Historical Park, and we had a camp that rode outside for 2 weeks every summer.
Cool, great, okay, thank you. Well, that leads nice naturally into Andrea, who's I think planning a party right now.
I love planning parties. My name is Andrea Zellner, and I work at Oakland Schools, which is our intermediate school district here in Michigan, in Southeast Michigan, outside of Detroit. And so I work, there's like a bazillion writing project sites in Michigan. So we kind of have this loose, informal network happening in Oakland County. And it happens to be that there is a national historical site right down the road from us. And so I thought, oh, I can plan a writing marathon in our National Historic Site and celebrate Write Out all at the same time. So it kind of just came together, and I have about 15 people signed up to come on Thursday. It was kind of a last minute thing that I dreamed up, and I'm really looking forward to that. So, and I'm a member of Red Cedar Writing Project, which is housed at Michigan State University. So
great, cool. We'll talk more about what you're planning, I think, in a little bit. Thank you. And let's see, Christina, did you introduce yourself? I can't remember now.
Sure. No, I didn't yet. Hi, I'm Christina Cantrell. So I'm really excited to be here with everybody and excited about Write Out. I work for the National Writing Project. And for folks who aren't as familiar with the National Writing Project, I just want to give a little bit of background. The National Writing Project is a peer-based organization that brings educators together across grade levels and disciplines to support writing and the teaching of writing. We increasingly work with educators also outside of classrooms, so working with rangers and interpretive rangers and educators across the country at our national parks is exactly the way we want to build opportunities for our kids to have truly connected learning opportunities and experiences to build out their interests and to develop their voice and their work that way. So we're super excited about the partnership with the national parks. There's been some amazing work happening at local sites around the country over the past few years that's really inspired us to think, let's start to share some of these resources out in a more broad way. So that's part of the impetus of Write Out. We want to share some of the things we've been learning. We want to invite you to think with us about other ways that these kind of partnerships could be developed and expanded, and ways that we connect kids with both our national parks, but also public spaces and historic sites and culturally important and relevant institutions in their communities and spaces and places outside. So what happens when we make those connections is really a key question here. I just want to say I'm at a, if I was to geolocate myself right now, I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico at a rural resource development retreat the National Marine Project is hosting. And this morning I got to go with a bunch of my colleagues to the Petroglyph National Monument. So this is a picture, I haven't quite posted it anywhere yet, but a bunch of us thought, you know, it's Right Out. We have to go out this morning. And we sought out the beautiful Petroglyph National Monument at sunrise. It was right after sunrise and it was gorgeous. And I'll make a map from it eventually.
Cool, that's great. Wow. And Chris, do you want to like formally introduce yourself? I know you gave us the overview, but.
Sure. Chris Constantine. I'm the Education Program Manager in National Park Service, Northeast Region. And I guess the only thing that I will add, similar to what Christina shared, is the National Park System is 418 sites. There's at least one site in every state. So we're definitely neighbors. We just got to find each other. And there are many other ways that the National Park Service touches the communities you live in. There's national trails. There's other programs that kind of help us kind of know about and preserve the natural landscape and soundscapes and shapes that make our country really awesome and great in like in a natural resource sense, in our history. And so maybe you're here this week and over the next week because you don't know a ton about the National Park Service, but hopefully together we can explore those connections, because it's just so cool when we realize we're neighbors, literally and figuratively.
Yeah, that's a great way of saying it too. I think that, you know, getting to know your neighbors a little more. We just watched the, you know, Mr. Rogers documentary recently. So before we kind of get into talking a little more about, you know, why we're getting involved and some of the ideas we've been thinking about and working on, we thought we would propose a little kind of making activity. So often in these kind of hangouts, we try to do something and kind of make something a little bit. And so if everyone has like paper and a pencil or something, we thought we would try to make a quick map. And you may not get it done, and it's okay to work on it while other people are talking too. But we'll just spend a couple minutes to kind of work on it a little bit. And the proposal for this kind of map is the idea of trying to map out some sort of organization that you're part of. And people who are kind of listening on the chat or even later on can do this too, to try to kind of visualize you know, some of the connections between either a writing project that you're part of, or maybe your school, or maybe a community organization, a park service. You know, you choose what it is that you want to map. And you can do any kind of map that you want. It could be a concept map, could be a landscape map, you know, whatever kind of seems inspirational to you in the moment. And we're just going to spend a couple of minutes just quietly doing a little mapping, and then we'll come back into our conversations. Does that sound good to people? Okay, so imagine you're listening to music that we don't have running right now. We'll just kind of map for a couple minutes, okay?
This would be where that maps playlist we want to make could come in well. So think about songs that have the words maps in it, everybody, while you're mapping.
We have a really good start in the chat, so.
They'll go like another minute or so. And then again, if you want to keep working on it while we're talking, feel free to. And maybe we'll share out at the end if people are interested. All right, so I'm going to try to pull us back together then, if we don't mind. So, one of the things that some of us mentioned in our introductions was why this project in particular kind of either caught our attention, either being asked as facilitators or as participants. So we thought we would try to just delve into that a little bit, to try to tell our kind of story of what is it about this connection between writing and learning and public spaces kind of caught our attention, and how we kind of hope it'll translate to maybe something larger afterwards, right? Does anybody want to jump in and just talk about why get involved in this particular project this summer?
Sure, I'll jump in.
Thanks,
hi, everybody. Kristen Lassard again from Weir Farm National Historic Site. One of the things that I think is really great about the opportunities that we have through this partnership is the kind of the aligned goals that we have. So there's this model with the writing project that, do you guys hear that beeping? I'm sorry. There's also the model with the writing project of teachers teaching teachers, and that really aligns well with the place-based education model that we have at Weir Farm National Historic Site to provide teachers with resources for them to use the park as a classroom. And so I think that's a really great connection, and it gets me really excited about the possibilities for teachers working with parks all around the country. And I think that's a big goal for the National Park Service is to be a resource in the education world. And I think that is a huge success, and it gets me excited. And so I'm excited to see connections be made.
And so you've had a professional development with teachers writing at your site, right?
Yeah, we had a couple of workshops, 2-day workshops that were led by the Connecticut Writing Project teachers in partnership with the park. But really that teachers teaching teachers model, where he led and developed most of the content for the workshop, did an amazing job, and we had 12 teachers for the first time we offered the workshop. So it drew in new audiences too to the park, which I thought was really great, because we've been doing teacher workshops at Weir Farm for years, and we got like all kind of like the local teachers, but we were able to reach these new audience through the networks with the National Writing Project. So I think there's a lot that we can offer to each other as partners. So.
Great.
And it's fun to get together with teachers and talk about ideas for getting outside and kind of breaking through the boundaries of the classroom and doing place-based education in parks. Nothing's more fun than getting a class out to the national park and seeing them make those connections educationally and to their natural cultural resources and the history of the country. So it's really cool.
Cool. Thank you. Anybody else want to jump in about why this particular project?
Yeah, I'll jump in.
Yeah, please.
Okay. I'm just kind of returning to the classroom. So what had appealed to me really in the terms of connection, I realized as we were talking that part of my experience in teaching is kind of a lack of connection. I'm an adjunct, so a lot of times I go in, I teach my class, I leave. So this is an opportunity for me to talk to other teachers, which has been something I didn't realize I was craving until I started reading this stuff. And then, in the years since I taught high school in the 90s, and then I worked with a lot of homeschool communities. I taught homeschool classes. I homeschooled my kids. And so I did a lot of work writing outside. And so I realized that this kind of pulls everything full circle for me, because I've really left some of that outdoor writing behind as I've gone back into the classroom. And so I kind of want to make sure I'm not leaving it completely behind. And that's where it kind of spills over into the work that I do to gather nature writing. And I gather art from local artists, and it's all place-based and in local places around us. So I realized in drawing my map that, I don't know if you guys can see this or if there's anything that you can read.
Yeah, a little bit.
But just that I've got so much connection around like the library, the parks, the marina office at the lake, but I don't have tons of connection to my classroom. So that's kind of what I'm here, is to take these two pieces of my life and try to get them connected.
Awesome. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to jump in?
I'll go. So when I was first in leadership at my writing project site, so I went through in 2005 in our summer institute, my first leadership job was to plan the writing marathons, which is kind of, it seems perfect for me because I love instigating shenanigans. And the first writing marathon I proposed was in a bog. And it was like feeling bogged down, right? It was so stupid. And so we wrote around that. Really stuck with me because one of the things about writing marathons, of course, is creating the space to just write, which is really important. That not only is it this concept of teachers teaching teachers, but that we put writing as a really important practice in terms of that. In order to teach writing, we have to be writers ourselves, and how often we give ourselves the space even to sit down and map. Look, I drew my map, you guys, in my notebook per usual. I'm really bad at drawing the UP though. And look at my Mackinac Bridge. I didn't do so bad right there.
It's super cute, actually.
Thank you. So I was trying to draw the networks among our writing project sites in Michigan.
Nice. Yeah.
And also grab onto some of those ideas about how rich we are in our natural resources. Like Michiganders are pretty proud of our Great Lakes and all that kind of stuff. So kind of putting all those things together. So, and I'll throw this in the chat too, but I made a writing marathon handout for my participants on Thursday so that we could kind of carry this forward that it's not, so for those who aren't usually coming to writing projects for my national parker friends, what we do in a writing marathon is it is very place-based. So we start in some kind of area and people break up into groups and then they write in the space. And so that becomes part of the inspiration for the writing. And putting those things together just seemed really natural to me. And I knew that we had this National Historic Site, and I just had taken a tour of the gardens. So it's at Cranbrook, which is a private school, and they have an art museum and a science museum, and they have these incredible gardens and a historical residence. And so it goes from wooded to very taken care of. Like the gardens themselves are art, just how they're planted, and then there's also sculptures, and because it's associated with the art museum, so it's free and open, and there's all of these different experiences. So I knew that it would work out really well, because where we are in Southeast Michigan, it's either go to Detroit or maybe Belle Isle, or there's a ton of national or state parks, but there's not the closest national, like a big national park is way up in the UP in Isle Royale. So I was really excited to be able to bring folks together, because we are really lucky to have a number of writing project sites in Michigan. I think we have 9 right now. And so we have all these folks in my county who want to come together and support one another with their writing. So
cool. Yeah, so you're going to share out the protocol that you're going to use.
Yeah, I have the link up here, so
great.
I'll pop it in the chat now that I'm done babbling, and people can ask me whatever questions about it. And really, it was like just a half-baked idea. I'm like, duh, these things go together. Let's do it. So yeah. I just threw it out on Twitter and a s'more and put it on Facebook, and now I've got people coming to write with me. So
excellent.
I
hope you share out too. Yeah.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah, cool. Anybody else want to jump in?
I feel like that kind of leads to me and why I'm doing this. So having just moved to a new place, my first thought with this was, great, I can use it to meet new people. Because I left a place where I had a lot of connections, and now I'm in a new place where I'm trying to build as many new connections as I can. And so that was part of what enticed me to be a part of this. But the other piece is that I wrote my dissertation on like how place affects writing, using the work that we did in the park. And the more I talked to the young writers, and the more they explained what they were thinking about to me, I became more and more convinced that the more time that they can spend immersed in a place as a part of their writing, the more beneficial it will be. And they, like a lot of us think like, oh, I love to write outside because there's kind of this zen to it. But they also, like, there were places where they were using knowledge that they gained from being in a place in the park for revision, or they were using it as research, or they were applying metaphors to the places they were visiting in the park in order to kind of expand how literary their writing was. They were presenting in public, and they were using it as inspiration. And another thing that I noticed with them was that they were constantly invoking other places as they described why they wrote something. And so just all of these pieces put together make me go, well, duh, like we should push everyone outside. And the more partnerships I can make around that, the happier I am.
Yeah, that's great. Wow. Yeah. Anybody else want to jump in? So for myself, I think in the area I live in, our main national park site is the Springfield Armory, but I think most of us here don't even know that. And the more I talk to people, they have no idea that it's even, part of our country's history. And so the first few times that I went there as part of our writing project partnership, it was really neat to discover. I guess in my case, it's right in instead of right out, because we go inside the armory to kind of write. But the grounds are pretty beautiful too. But our mission from our writing project was to reach more teachers in our main urban area, which is Springfield, Massachusetts. And we saw the partnership with the Armory as a great way to kind of hook those all together. So like my map, which I know you probably can't see, but kind of shows bridges between, you know, our writing project at UMass, with the Springfield Armory, and then the schools that we've been working with in Springfield. And our main school is a social justice school. And so we've been running a free summer camp at the Armory last 4 summers around themes of social justice, and particularly around elements of immigration, particularly around workers and women in the workforce, and technology and innovation. I mean, it's hard to get away from the fact that the Armory has a lot of guns in it, which is a little kind of strange for teachers to kind of walk into and think about it. But Scott Gowson, who's the ranger there, there's a lot of outreach to schools to try to get them to bring classes to the Armory, and they do during the school year, which is kind of neat. And they do a lot of writing as part of that. So I think it's a kind of cool connection. And I don't know, maybe Chris can talk about this a little bit, but because often when we think of national parks, we think of, you know, Yosemite and these, you know, huge, expansive kind of, you know, Western vistas. But in reality, I mean, those certainly are gems of our national network. But there are a lot of other places in cities and other places, urban areas, that are just as important for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, absolutely, Kevin. And unfortunately, I can't put a link into the YouTube chat, but you can go to nps.gov, and it's easy to look at a map that shows you where all the National Park Service sites are. And, you know, I support the parks from Virginia to Maine, so I know those stats a little bit more, but everybody that lives in the Northeast corridor is within an hour's drive of a national park. So, you know, we might have an opportunity to have this like great, you know, maybe solo or family adventure where we head out to like a big gateway park and have this like vacation of a lifetime, but that also might never happen. And there's many other national parks to go to also. So we're kind of everywhere, which is, you know, like that's the mission of the National Park Service. It's not just to, you know, we kind of started as an organization, not kind of, we did start as an organization that was preserving big open spaces. And over the years, we've kind of added other parts of our collective history as Americans into the national park portfolio as a way to tell all stories and preserve our collective history. So, and history is all around us. History didn't happen long ago or far away. It happened all around us and continues to happen now. So, dang it, I really wish I could put that link in there, but we'll make sure we kind of tweet it out, put it on the blog and that kind of thing, so that you can also see the kind of intersection between National Writing Project sites and National Park Service sites. I think maybe if you don't mind, I'll share my map real quick too, and what I'm excited about. Okay, so I totally went on the "Won't You Be My Neighbor" theme, and if you can see that, and when I look at like everything that I've kind of like mind mapped off of here, I realized that, not that I realized, but it's just cool to see it in writing here, that like what I most look forward to when we get to do these kind of 1 or 2 week professional developments together is really listening to and hearing from the teachers that serve all of the students that, you know, we're very hopeful for in our next generations, and an audience that we're very passionate about in the National Park Service too. But as somebody that works in the National Park Service, it's the federal government. I can't ask the public a lot of questions because there's rules about that. So this is one opportunity for me to be a good listener and learn from teachers about what it is that they find inspiring for them as professional learners, what resources they find really useful to and really engaging for their students. How might we as an organization better serve teachers so they can serve students better? So most of the things that I was mapping was about like who's in my local community. But then when I started to think about why I'm interested in this work and these 2 weeks in particular, it's because this is a larger opportunity to listen to teachers from across the country and across the world. So as much as I look forward to making my own maps, I also look forward to kind of learning from and hearing from you all across these weeks.
Great. Thank you.
Can I jump in too, Kevin?
Yeah, of course.
I didn't make a map because I was trying to get Chris Mazura to join us, and for some reason we couldn't get the connection. Chris has been with his children. He says he's writing with love from Northern Cascades and Olympic National Park via their stopover in Vancouver today. So he's with his children, and they've been tweeting and sharing what they've been doing every day over the Write Out hashtag on Twitter. So I would encourage everybody to take a look at them and follow their adventures, because it's really quite lovely. There are a few chat things that we should bring up too, but one of the things that I was thinking about when I wasn't mapping, but when I was listening to you guys talk, and when I've been looking at the partnerships over time as a National Writing Project staff person, I've had that opportunity. And we've talked about this at our annual meeting, et cetera, is some of the themes that really cut across these partnerships and the themes that come up in these parks. So Kevin, you mentioned immigration. So certainly that's a theme that we see in lots of parks and can be totally explored. We see how on the West Coast, writing project sites are working with national parks to look at Japanese internment and the segregation of Japanese. And then on the East Coast, so issues of civil rights, and like thinking about how can those connect, and what are the some of the bigger topics of democracy and freedom, and exploring what these ideas mean, and how does that compare to our world today, and how does history inform what we see in our practice today? And ecology of course plays a huge role across all of these partnerships. So part of my map I wanted to start to draw, like in my mind, the mind map that was starting to come out was sort of like some of these threads that you start to see, which I think are really powerful and provide a lot of really powerful opportunities to think cross-disciplinarily when we're thinking about a school context, and to really think cross-disciplinarily about this work.
Yeah, that's great. And, I guess we should mention, like, we chose mapping as one of our kind of metaphorical kind of literacy moments because it has a lot of entry points for different people, depending on local or national or thematic. I mean, so that there's a lot of openings for people to represent, their understanding or their kind of world or their connection. So I think it's really kind of powerful tool to kind of use in a lot of different ways, which makes it really neat, I think. So we thought we'd ask, I know we just made a map in our session here, but what are some of the things you've been kind of making or doing so far in just the first couple of days, or what are you going to try to do in the week ahead, would you say? And I'll just say that I shared out a piece that I had done this morning that actually made some time back when we were starting to kind of facilitate this project, in which some teachers at the Springfield Armory, that are part of our professional development project, work with me to create an immigration map for the Springfield Armory from some primary sources that we had from World War II. And we found pictures and short biographies of 16 different kind of workers. And so we created a map that shows their country of origin and then links it right to Springfield. And then the teachers narrated the biographies. So we made some YouTube videos that we then embedded as part of the Google map. And it was kind of neat just to be able to kind of see the world and see where all these people came from and landed up in our area. During a time when the Armory in particular was the hub of just about everything in this part of Massachusetts and the Connecticut Valley around innovation and technology and manufacturing. So that was something that I made that I can share today. But how about anybody else? What have you been up to, or what do you think you're going to be up to?
Well, I can jump. I'm sorry.
Yeah, please.
Go for it. Go for it.
So I got so excited about this that I just, it's family vacation time. And so I'm sad that Christopher can't be here because he's with his kids. And I know that I've been inviting my own offspring into these writing invitations especially because the connections between the Connected Learning MOOC and Write Out have been really tight. And so those seem really wonderful opportunities to go. And earlier, when I first heard about this, I was so sad because my big national park trip was in June. And I was like, no, how am I going to do Write Out if that's when I'm going? And so it was fun to think ahead too, about just like, it struck me earlier too about how someone was saying, oh, well, we should, Write Out is going on, so we should be outside. I just keep coming back to that, the way that it brings our awareness of the way that place-based making can really be so fruitful and fertile for us as we go out, and the way in which I experience the parks. I went to Grand Canyon and Bryce and Zion. And so every day I was trying to take time to reflect on my experiences in the park. And it was like I was this little magpie in the park. I feel like I experienced it in a different way because I was thinking in terms of like, how do I write or design or make around these ideas that I'm running into in the park. So it was really fun for me. I think I spent less time taking pictures and more time doodling or writing or just in thinking about it so that I could do that later too. So I was really trying to set aside time and be really intentional. So that's all I wanted to throw in there.
Cool. Did you keep a notebook? Is that part of your doodle?
Yeah, I have a notebook. It's right here. It has many doodles from meetings and national parks alike.
Cool. I think I've seen that notebook.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to talk about what they've been up to?
Yeah, I'll go. I know the one thing that I want to do is, so you may or may not know that July 18th is World Listening Day. And I'm looking forward to, throughout this 2 weeks, but on that day in particular, just finding some time to sit and listen and kind of take in the landscape. And then I plan on like making a map of that, or like a map of, I don't know if it's like doodles or maps or kind of written reflection. But once I realized that, 2 days from, or tomorrow is World Listening Day, that it could be really cool to link in our work to this larger kind of conversation that's happening too about the sound that we're surrounded with all the time and how it connects us all together. And then that relates back to national parks for sure, because one of the programs that we have in the National Park Service is a soundscapes program. And so we're always trying to monitor how is our soundscape changing, and then how might that affect natural resources, animals, migrations, those kind of things. So I'm looking forward to listening, writing, mapping, and then sharing some of those Park Service resources out with you all as we go through.
That's awesome. Yeah. Soundscapes are cool.
I was thinking about when I'm back in Philadelphia, which is my hometown, I walk and run in this one park. So it's one of the, it's Washington Square Park in Philadelphia, and it's actually a national park site. And it has these incredible histories associated with it, revolutionary histories, African-American histories, plague histories. It was a burial ground. It was a ceremonial place for African-Americans who were coming from the South to escape slavery. It was an important gathering place. So there's so many stories there, and there's a lot of untold stories there. And I was really interested, or some of them are told, but I'm just thinking about like the amplification of some of the stories there. How much do we know about the different ways that this park was used? I feel like I just want to sort of both do my own exploration for how much is out there, and then sort of think about ways that I might be able to amplify some of these stories, because I find it fascinating and it's multi-layered, and I'm just trying to start to understand it and make my own maps of it.
Christina, we with Project Right, we would sit in Washington Square Park and listen, because it's still used by, you know, so many different people in the community. And so the young writers would sit in the park and like pull out language that they heard as people were going by, and they would write found Pantoum poems while they were there.
Oh, wow.
Which is a format that's like a repeating poem format.
Cool.
Yeah.
That goes with the listening day thing really well.
Yeah, yeah.
Anybody else?
Sure, I'll go. So I'll show you my map that doesn't really look like a map anymore. It started as a map of the United States, and I was mapping like where parks with themes similar to where farms are, like visual arts, historic preservation, or things I was interested in. Because like Chris and Christina both mentioned, there are these opportunities in national parks to think about like broader themes and real issues that are going on and, you know, really relevant to today. So that's what I mapped out. So I kind of want to continue to do a little bit of research and see, looking at some of the resources that I know are going to be posted and that people are going to be sharing during Write Out, to see some examples of student work or things that teachers or writing project sites are already doing related to those themes. So that way the second week I can delve a little bit deeper. So that's my plan. And then also I don't feel like I have a full list of like, what are all the writing project sites? How many are there? And I want to delve a little deeper into that, so I could share that with my national park colleagues, because I think it really is a cool partnership for sites to connect. And I have also mapped out like where some of my really great people I know who are really great with education programs, or, you know, really awesome park rangers are in parks around the country, and someone that I think that would be a really good fit for this program. So I'll try to see if I can build some connections. So that's where I'm starting.
Great.
So I'll jump in. So one of the parks that we've got here is the, I believe it's called the National Freedom Trail. We've got parts of some old growth forest that was part of the Underground Railroad, and then old Quaker cemetery and burying ground there. And that's a place I'm really familiar with. But it kind of ties into getting ready to travel up. We're taking vacation up to New England. And so it ties into, I just found out the Airbnb that we're staying at was a house on the Underground Railroad. So that's kind of been on my mind, is just what am I going to discover up in New England? So I haven't had a whole lot of a firm plan for what I'm going to do. I figured ideas will find me. But what this is bringing up for me really is the logistics of getting students out into a national park. The classes that I teach are, you know, a mix. I've got high school students, and then I've got older students and first generation college students. And so the logistics of getting a class out to a national park just seems difficult to me, but I'm thinking digitally, you know, there might be some possibilities for us to use Google. So I'm just kind of thinking in terms of logistics, if anybody's got on that, of how to bring the parks into the classroom. That's kind of one of the things that's coming up for me.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of hurdles for a lot of teachers, either geographically or curriculum-wise. You know, I know that in our at the Springfield site, working with schools, that our Ranger Scott, you know, has gone to the schools with all sorts of kind of materials and done things in the schools themselves. He's worked really hard to try to have some of our teachers bring their students to the Armory, and most of those have not happened for logistical and administrative reasons. So I think there's a lot of difficulties, and I think that that's a really kind of a realistic point to kind of bring up. And so I think probably the first thing is making connections, right, between your school or your writing project site and what's near you. I guess our park people know, but do most parks have like an educational, I know you have different names than we use, but like an educational resource person that teachers can reach out to?
Yeah, it varies park to park. Some folks have one person that's dedicated. Some people wear the kind of education hat and several other hats. But one place to definitely start is every National Park Service site has a website, and at the bottom of the website is going to be an email that you, a link that you can email the park directly, or you could just go there. Mm-hmm. And ask for education. Always falls in, well, most likely is going to fall in the interpretation and education division. And if you say, hey, I'm excited about this, is the chief of interpretation here, I would be surprised if they weren't like, yeah, we'll be down.
There's also a lot of really great resources on park websites. And then there's a National Park Service for Teachers website that has curriculum materials and contact information. There's also a lot of, I know you mentioned there's a lot of barriers for teachers. And like from my experience as the education coordinator at my park, that's like a goal of mine, is to like help them break down those barriers by like either providing a transportation stipend or talking to their administration. Like, this is learning in the park. It's not just a field trip. It's a classroom experience, to try to, really help teachers break through those barriers. And I know a lot of other park ranger staff out there and education rangers are doing that. Because it's a priority for us to get teachers and students engaged in the park, and be that resource.
Yeah, and I think one of the goals of our Write Out project is this idea of trying to help teachers in writing projects find who those people are they connect with, and help park rangers do the reverse, right? Find the teachers that they want to connect with, and find ways to bring all those things, because the goals are very similar, right? Experiential learning, place-based writing, all those kind of things kind of come together. But it's hard to do that if you don't know who to talk to, I think.
I would also add that the partnership work that we've been doing too, one of the goals is to develop resources from these partnerships that can be useful to both the parks as well as to teachers and students. So for example, at the Hudson Valley Writing Project, the kids actually have been developing, the kids themselves who have been in part of the project are developing a website, like a clickable interactive website of the site. So they're creating resources for the park that's also could be used in schools and by youth and students. I know in Philadelphia, they have a very active blog and Flickr feed. So there's all these artifacts because youth are creating in these contexts. There's lots of things that the youth are creating too that hopefully could be used in other ways to inspire those kind of connections.
I just want to jump in too, because I think one of the things about these kinds of projects is that whenever we have authentic audiences for our students, for their learning, that just makes the writing even more powerful. And I also know that your communications people, if you have a communications director or someone who does the web presence in your district, is just dying for stories like this. So for those who are successful, I just want to like put it on your radar, like you should be contacting the local press, send out a press release, make that stuff as visible as possible, because whereas there might be all these, sometimes teachers and administrators get really locked into the barriers, but when they see it as a possibility and that it's a moment of celebration and the authenticity, and then of course all these resources coming out, to me, like that just raises the possibility even further. And the other thing I want to say is that like in our chat over here in the YouTube, folks are saying like, oh, I didn't realize that wasn't a national park, it's a national forest or it's a state park. And I think one of the ways we can create more trust towards these sort of open spaces is by acknowledging that, there are other local opportunities. So even if you don't have a national park near you, that this model can be adapted for your local context. And maybe it's just going to the pond that's in the field behind the school and using the same kind of techniques and ideas to approach that place, and that this becomes your inspiration, so that you're not trying to bite off the whole, maybe you don't have a Springfield Armory near you and a nice relationship, but you still have out of the school walls to go and engage with.
Yeah, that's a great thought that we're going to start ending on. And we want to mention to anybody who's watching, either live or later on, that even if you haven't started with Write Out, you're definitely invited to kind of join in. There's a lot of different ways to get information, but we have a main hub website at writeout.nwp.org, where newsletters are going out and other information. So definitely check that out if you can. So a couple of things before we end tonight. I want to say thank you to all the guests that were here. We appreciate that. You took your time to kind of talk with us, and we're sorry the other Chris couldn't join us, but we know he's probably having fun with his family, so that's good. And on Thursday, so 2 nights from now, on Thursday, we're going to be having a Twitter chat at 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific. We're going to be using the Write Out hashtag. So if you haven't tweeted before, you can join us and kind of get involved and see how it works. If you're a veteran Twitter person, we hope you jump in too. And we'll be having some questions and discussions, and so we invite everyone who wants to join in to please kind of join us. And again, we have our
Maybe I should just mention on the writeout.nwp.org website is just a link for getting started on Twitter chats. And it has some really basic links to sort of how does this work, and then some links to a couple tools that you can use to make a Twitter chat even easier to participate in. I love those tools. They're really helpful. So people should check those out if you're, but this is an authentic opportunity to try Twitter.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And we'll share out the specific link probably tomorrow, and just to make sure people have immediate access to it as well. And then our second activity cycle will begin next week, where we kind of build on some of the things we've been doing this week as we try to help people make deeper connections with others, so that this work can go on and hopefully lead into classroom settings and at park sites and all sorts of different things. So. I think we're just about done, unless somebody would like to, anybody want to have a final thought at all? Okay. So,
sorry. I did want to amplify this idea that we really are wanting to encourage people to explore their public spaces and places in their communities. And so we're partnering with the national parks because we care about, the stories that are in these places and spaces around us. And we really want you to explore them, national parks or not. So so join us. And I also want to say that we have a few places to connect with each other where we can share these maps that we're making. So we'd love to see some of those maps that you all might have been making. And thank you, Kevin, for that prompt. And thank you for hosting, Kevin, actually. I really want to thank you publicly for that.
Thank you. You're welcome. Yes, please share out. So we have our hashtag at Twitter. We have a Google Plus community that you're welcome to join, invited to join. And if you blog, share out your blog, and wherever you are, you can share out. Yeah. Okay. Well, good night, everyone, then.
Thank you, Kevin.
Good night. Thank you.
It's good to talk to y'all.
Thank you, Kevin. Bye.
It was good to meet everybody.
Google Sphere.
Bye, guys. See you on the Twitter chat.
Okay.